members of the public will be permitted, but the public can access this meeting while in progress by Zoom Video Communications, Inc. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by telephone, cell phone, or personal computer using Zoom. And just quickly for guidelines for participants, please use the chat or raise hand function if you want to address the board. Wait for the board to ask for you to be unmuted. And please display your first and last name for your user account on Zoom. With all that said, by tradition, we will start with a roll call. I am Brian Barabee.
I'm Bill Payne.
Jillian Glasanos.
Paul Brandvold.
And Rebecca Longbaugh.
Excellent. All right. Rebecca, quick reminder, the Wetlands Protection Act.
Chapter
140, 131,
Section 40.
and then 233 for our bylaws. Sorry.
Yes, that's okay.
All right. So the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a request for determination of applicability for culvert repair on Still River Road by the Department of Public Works. Is someone here tonight representing the DPW?
Yes, Randy Hedlund.
Randy, could you give us a quick rundown of what you're proposing to do?
Sure. There's this is in preparation of Mass DOT paving Still River Road from town line to town line. I did an inspection of the culverts, and I've identified two culverts that are in immediate need of replacement rather. They're both on the section of Still River Road between Lancaster and Route 117. First one is located about 300 feet plus or minus north of the Lancaster town line. And the second one is about 700 and I think it's 700 and excuse me.
Just to note, Mr. Chair, Lori Stevenson has joined the meeting.
Excellent.
Yeah, the second culvert is located about 700 feet north of the Lancaster town line. I apologize. For some reason, I was thinking it was 1,700, but it's 700.
Okay.
Right next to the driveway for number 33. The existing drop inlets are nearing a state of failure, need to be replaced. And there is, from the outlet pipe from the drop inlet, there's a reflective cracking going up through the pavement. In fact, the one at 700 feet north of Lancaster town line, there's actually a pothole in the middle of the road that we keep filling with coal patch. So the plan is to take out the existing drop outlets, put in two catch basins with sumps, and outlet the pipe following the same path that the old pipe goes, which exits and outlets just on the back side of the guardrail. Put a better defined outlet with some riprap. That's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward.
All right. Rebecca, have you had a chance to go out there and look at this?
I have actually, I think it was the one that's 700 feet up.
Yeah.
That one was brought to my attention first when we saw the damage occurring, or rather the failure starting to occur. So I went out and looked at it with Randy, and then we looked at the second as well. And I believe all the work you're proposing is within the right of way. Is that correct, Randy?
Yeah, that is correct. All the work is within the right of way. Absolutely.
So the right of way associated with
There was some
110.
Yep. 110 Still River. There was a concern about national heritage because it does abut that area in Lancaster. There is a email from the representative from them in the package indicating that they did not have a problem with this is based on the information. The division does not have any rare species concerns with the proposed project, and the project limits maybe are outside the priority habitat. Either way, this project appears to be very straightforward.
And, Rebecca, I know we've permitted a number of culvert repairs in the past. Does the RDA as it stand now basically follow what we've looked for in the past?
Yes, I believe so.
All right. I don't think I have further questions. Any members of the commission have any questions, comments, or concerns at this time? Hearing none. Is there any members of the public here tonight to comment on this project?
Just a reminder again, you can use the raised hand function or the chat function. And I am seeing none.
Okay, yep. Rebecca, could you remind me of our negative options?
Sure.
Specifically, I know I don't think it would be -3 because I don't think we're adding any conditions to the RDA as it stands. But if you can remind me what -5 is.
So -5 is an exemption.
Yep.
Negative, which may be the case if you're finding that it's maintaining within the existing right of way. The other thing you could do is do a -3.
Yep.
Even though you just said you probably wouldn't want to add conditions, just an adding like erosion control inspection or an inspection by the conservation agent, anything like that, either post or pre-construction, which will occur anyways. Randy has called me out on multiple sites that he's concerned with before I'm even aware of it. So I don't foresee that being a problem, but if the commission wanted to issue a -3, they'd be able to do that in that sense. Or a -3 without conditions as well.
And do any of the others make sense? I was trying to think if there was one for basically repair and maintenance of existing. I'm sorry, you're
I
on mute.
muted myself. There you would want to do the -5 and find that it meets an exemption under the Wetlands Protection Act and the local bylaw.
All right. Let's hit my themes. All right. So again, I'll ask any commission members with any questions, comments, anything to add. Okay. In that case, I'm going to make a motion that we close the public hearing for culvert repair on Still River Road. Do I hear a second for closing?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well. And I'd like to make a motion that we issue a -3 determination for the culvert repair on Still River Road, with the added condition that the town's conservation agent will inspect the site both pre and post construction.
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Randy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Randy, before you leave, and Mr. Chair, this is completely at your discretion.
Please go
We
ahead.
have another item that should be relatively short associated with DPW.
Sure.
That is an enforcement order was issued for temporary repair of the roadway at Borbush Mill Road, crossing 1 this time, so the closest to the Department of Public Works building or
Yes.
facility there. The crossing has started essentially caving in on one side of the roadway, causing a sinkhole. So for that temporary repair, and then to pull some debris from what was essentially clogging the inlet side, they had to do that work to unclog it. So the enforcement order was the best way to do that. So it's just ratifying that enforcement order at this time.
Okay, I understand. We've done this similarly in the past. Any commission members have question, comments, or thoughts regarding this vote? Or the enforcement order that was issued? Again, hearing none. Call for a roll call vote to ratify the enforcement order that was issued for roadway temporary repair of Borbush Mill Road. All those in favor of ratifying the enforcement order, please say aye. And once again, we'll start with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca. I am an aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you again. I'm going to stick in the meeting, just out of curiosity, if nothing else. Thank you.
Do you want to do minutes while we wait, Brian? I think we have a couple minutes.
Yeah, we definitely do. Can I ask you, is this the deliberation of an ANRAD, is that a public hearing, so it has to be opened? Right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. In that case, did everybody get a copy of the minutes from March 15th, 2022? And Paul, you're exempt from this one. And if not, does anybody need, well, if everybody's had a chance to read through the minutes and have any changes or edits, please let us know. And if you need more time to read through the minutes, again, please let us know. Anybody need more time or have any edits? Again, hearing none. Like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for our March 15th, 2022 meeting as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting, starting with Bill,
Aye, okay.
Jillian,
Let's do.
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca. I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
All right. All right. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to discuss an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for 580 Main Street. Rebecca, is someone representing the applicant here this evening, or the applicant themselves?
I believe Tom Schutz is here.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry about that. My name is Tom Schutz from Goddard Consulting, and I am here on behalf of the applicant at 580 Main Street for the ANRAD.
Excellent. To say, do we have a copy of the NRAD we can put up on screen, Rebecca?
I can also share my screen if that's good. I have I actually have the plans all compiled into one image, so it makes it easier for everybody to see, and it's not broken up because there's 4 sheets in the ANRAD plan.
That would be fine,
Okay.
Rebecca, if
So
you're,
let me
yeah.
stop share then. Okay, Tom, you should be able to.
Great, thank you. Okay, can everybody see my screen here?
Yes. I mean, I
Okay,
can-
perfect. So we'll just start off with our ortho photo here. Again, I'm Tom Schutz from Gatto Consulting here on behalf of the applicant at 580 Main Street. Here is our property right here. It's a quite large property. It's outlined in red. We have several jurisdictional resources on site, including bordering land subject to flooding. We have a perennial river. We also have some BVW. There is also 2 isolated wetlands in this section that may be from a old detention basin or stormwater management system, but we'll get that when we look at the plans. Just wanted to give a brief overview of it and show everybody the aerial. So I have compiled all the plans together here and made one large plan. If it loads. Okay. It's supposed to be there.
Sometimes if you zoom in, it will
Okay.
reset it. Yeah.
Here we go. All right, so currently we have a large building, which is right here. We have several roads and this large parking lot in the south of the property. We also have this large parking lot area, which is also as a roundabout. We have this great brook right here, which is the perennial stream. It runs south through the site. Down in this section right here, it gets extremely swampy, so there's not actually any flags out there. However, that's not going to, I don't believe that's going to impact the site. This is just an approximate location of where the stream banks are. We have a couple large BVW systems associated with this stream. This one down here in the south portion of the site, it runs under this detention basin here, and it is again associated with the perennial river. We have another section of it up in this section, and then it hugs the bank of the stream pretty tightly in the eastern side here. We have another section out here of BVW, which is all flagged. This section down here, again, is just extremely swampy. So if we go for a site visit, it's going to be really hard to access it. We have a third section of BVW down in this bottom west corner. The light green here is the 25-foot buffer zone. This is more olive color is our 50-foot buffers or 75-foot buffer zone, I'm sorry. And then this kind of teal color is our 100-foot buffer zone. We also have our 100-foot riverfront area shown in this lighter teal color right here, which I'm outlining, which we zoom out, we could see that more clearly. And then this dark blue is our 200-foot riverfront area. We also have bordering land subject to flooding from the 100-year flood zone, which is outlined in this dashed blue line here. And it kind of runs down and eventually connects back to the BVW in this section here. As I talked about before, we have 2 isolated wetlands that are non-jurisdictional under the Wetland Protection Act here. And these are from 2 old stormwater management systems. They are extremely small and they have mostly cattail and other species that will be planted in a stormwater basin of this type. These are not connected at all. And again, they are non-jurisdictional under the Wetland Protection Act. Finally, we're coming down to these. This is a southern pond here or non-jurisdictional stormwater management feature. This is considered a fire pond in an old order of conditions that was filed. We have another one in the north up here. These are both considered fire ponds, and they were built in 1989 according to an order of conditions that was filed in 2021. The order of conditions was for the maintenance of these fire ponds here. The order of conditions also stated they had a special condition in there that an ANRAD must be filed every 3 years. So that is another reason why we're coming before you with this ANRAD to confirm the resource areas on site and also just to confirm the BVW and the riverfront lines here before we move forward any further plans for the project. I'll move down to our next project here. As we can see, the fire ponds were built outside of wetland resource areas. This is our building right here, and then our several roads and parking lots. This was built in an old field. We can see Great Brook running down here towards the east. This is, again, built outside of wetland resource areas in just an upland field. Again, here's another one up here. And here is an aerial taken in 1995 of the completed stormwater basins and essentially what existing conditions are currently in the field today. We can see that this is the BVW down here and again, Great Brook. So I would like to open the meeting to any questions from the commission and to potentially schedule a site walk if the commission sees fit.
Sure. And this is to you, Tom or Rebecca. Those the two areas that aren't jurisdictional under the Wetlands Protection Act, are they jurisdictional under the town bylaw?
Possibly, I'd have to, without reviewing where these are delineated, I wouldn't be able to answer that accurately. But Brian, you do bring up a good point, that those areas may be jurisdictional under the bylaw, but also I did hear Tom state the 75-foot buffer, and I was curious as well if on the plans it was annotated the 75-foot adjacent upland resource area, which we know the first 25 feet is the no disturb area, and then the adjacent 75 feet from that 25-foot out is the adjacent upland resource area. Obviously that coincides with the buffer zone. So I think that's helpful just to have that noted as well.
So on the plans right here, we could see that this is actually annotated as 75-foot wetland buffer, 25-foot wetland buffer, and 100-foot wetland buffer. It's just a little broken up because I compiled the two together, the two plans at the match line. So that's why this text is broken up like this. But they are annotated as 75-foot wetland buffer and not the 75-foot aura.
So I appreciate you expressing that. My point of bringing that up is it would be helpful, or more of it was a question through the chair to you of, on this set of plans, is there anything annotated to say that the 100-foot buffer coincides with the aura or something to that nature, since you don't have it exactly on those? Because I think it's helpful to have the buffer broken up like that, just to sort of understand where they are. But I was curious if you had that anywhere on the plans already.
I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. It's not on the plans. It could be in a note that got cut off in one of the sections over here, but I will confirm with our engineer with that. And if you guys need updated plans stating that that's the 100 or the 75-foot aura, we can provide that.
Okay. All right. And my other initial question, are those fire ponds or detention basins? I thought the idea with the way they had done it back then was basically to kind of create wetlands. And I noticed on the one in the back of the parking lot here, it says that it's non-jurisdictional, but is that a non-jurisdictional feature, or is that now considered a wetland? And just knowing also most of the fire ponds in town are jurisdictional to us.
So these are non-jurisdictional because they were built in an upland resource area. Again, if we go down to here, it was just built in a large field, and there was a large berm that actually separates. If we zoom in here, there's a large berm that separates the wetland, the BVW system down here, and the edge of the pond, and they are maintained as stormwater features currently. And that was expressed again in the order of conditions that was filed in 2021, and that for the record is DEP file 112-0701.
Okay,
Brian, can I just make one comment?
please.
So the reason why, and I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole yet without being on site and taking a look at these, which I think would be helpful. But just to clarify, that order of conditions was put in place because this area had not been maintained properly. And there was a cut that took place because it hadn't been maintained for a few years. So I just want to make that clear. I don't know if that becomes relevant at some point in this conversation, but I do just want to state that was the reason for that order of conditions to be issued and that notice of intent to be filed was for the maintenance, to ensure that in the future it was conditioned properly, in that it could in fact be maintained so that it wasn't a violation every time.
Gotcha. I think I understand that. All right. that's basically it for my initial questions. I would like to get out on site. I have been there, but it's been a couple of years now since the last time I went out on site at that location. So I would like to do a site visit if possible. And also we have new commission members since I think the last time any of us went out there. So I'd probably would ask for that. That said, do any commission members have any initial questions or thoughts or anything specifically they might want to see if we're in the field?
No, Brian, I agree. I would like to go see it also.
Okay. I guess let me ask, any members of the public here tonight that wish to comment on this request?
Again, you can use the raise hand function or the chat function to have the commission notice you if you have a comment or question.
Okay. Not seeing.
No one.
Not seeing any. All right. So, and Tom, you were all right if we continue this until our next meeting so we can have a chance to hopefully set a site visit in between now and then?
Yep, that would be great.
That's excellent. And Rebecca, our next meeting is the 19th. And what's our first open time? You're muted.
Thank you, Brian.
No problem.
I would say 7:30 or 7:45, I believe.
We'll shoot for 7:30. Hope for the best. All right. And in that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for 580 Main Street until our next public hearing, Tuesday, April 19th at 7:30 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
I second.
All those in favor, we'll start with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well.
Wonderful, thank you. I do want to just state for some members who have just joined, if you could change your display name to your first and last name, that would be appreciated.
Sorry, we have about a minute to go before I can start the next hearing. So anybody who needs to stretch, go for it.
Brian, can you see my screen shared again?
I can, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Good. All right. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a request for determination of applicability for 189 Bear Hill Road, new addition to an existing single-family home. Rebecca, is the applicant or someone representing the applicant here this evening?
Yes, I believe.
Yeah, we're both here.
Oh, there you are.
How are you guys doing?
Good. If you wouldn't mind, could you walk us through the proposed project?
Sure. So what we're doing is we're on that corner of the house where the marker is there. You can see we're putting a lean-to addition to our garage. It's like a third bay, basically, to an existing structure. We're just adding on to that existing structure.
Okay.
So the way the rectangular sits now, you're adding on to the top right? Is that what it is?
So actually, I think that's showing, that's already showing the addition added on. So
Oh.
I've taken it from the additions corner to show, there was a question as far as measurements, to get a measurement to where the culvert pipe is underneath our property.
Okay, thank you.
I was trying to figure out, so Rebecca, is this, I'm looking at an underground, is it underground water that cuts through the property? And that's what makes it
Yes.
jurisdictional?
Yep, that is correct. And it outlets in their front yard. And
Okay.
it comes from, so the hydrologic connection is to the wetland across the street over here, but it does outlet in their yard.
So actually it goes, I'm sorry, not to interrupt you, but it goes the opposite way. It outlets into it goes the opposite direction. So we don't have water coming into our yard. And really the reason that we put that in initially is for snow melt in the springtime. It was flooding out our driveway pretty badly. So there was an existing culvert there and we just tied into that. And so it goes underneath the street of Candleberry Road and into the town of Harvard.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can you show me where it starts and goes to? Just
I'll chime
just
in.
with the mouse would work.
Will you show him, Rebecca? I don't think I can with my mouse.
Yeah, so if you describe it, I can try. We'll try and play.
It's right.
charades here, sorry.
It starts right at our driveway. So I would,
Basically, yeah, right there.
yeah, so like probably where the number 4 is, like approximately there. It's just there's a pipe that went underneath our driveway and we.
Sorry,
It's all right.
kiddo visitors here.
Does this tie into Still River Road, Bill? Is that the question you're asking?
Still
No.
River Road?
Or not, excuse me, Bear Hill. Thank you.
I was
Is that
looking
the-
at it also on Google Maps and trying to figure out between this drawing and maps where it is.
Yeah, so directly on the right-hand side, if you go to Google Maps, you can see there's a small like sewer drain that I put in on the side of our driveway. And then there's a 4-inch pipe that goes from that little sewer drain on the side of my driveway where we had some water. And it goes down into a not really a dry well. There's some riprap there around an existing culvert that had been there before. And when we were having some issues with spring.
I see
Spring-
where it is now.
Okay.
Thank you.
But that typically, I would say 99% of the time, that's a dry pipe. The only time it has water in is in the springtime when we have melt and the ground is still frozen, the water has nowhere to go.
Okay, thank you.
The area where the house is getting extended, is that existing lawn currently? What's there now?
Yeah, it's just the side of it. There's I think it's like gravel right now. I think they had put a vehicle there at one point, so there's like a kind of a gravelly driveway there.
Okay. And between the house and that drainage area, is that lawn? Is that wooded? What is that now?
It's a pasture. It's dry pasture.
No, well, we have our driveway is right in front of our existing garage.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
And it actually does extend because it's actually made to have like another parking spot almost on the side of the garage. So I don't know how wide the driveway is on that section, maybe 25 feet or something. And then you hit our front yard, probably a quarter of a way of that blue line towards the other triangle.
I gotcha. All right. Other commission members have initial questions or comments? Rebecca, do you have any? Oh.
Sorry, Brian, I have a question. How big
Please,
is the
go ahead, Jen.
structure?
The lean-to is 13 feet wide it's the same size as our existing garage, basically, but it comes out like a slanted roof. It's
In depth.
13 feet, yep, and then 23 feet long or 21 feet long or so. Just like an extra bay, basically.
Rebecca, did you have any initial thoughts or comments? Or have you been out to the site?
I did not. I've driven by the site because I wasn't familiar with it. But it's exactly how they described. I just was not comfortable signing off on a permit where it's jurisdictional. Or it could be seen as jurisdictional by the commission, but it is over an area that seems to be maintained from what I can see from the roadway. And it's a very odd thing with that hydrologic connection. And
Yeah.
the property owners have been very responsive, or at least their contractor has been, because there was some confusion about the parcel. You can see it's right up against the Harvard town line. So there was some questions about that started this process, and then we discovered this hydrologic connection.
All right. Yeah, just curious, if members have strong feelings, if anybody wants to go out and see the site, or if people are comfortable tonight trying to make a decision on it. I'm curious how you all feel. Don't everyone shout out at once.
I
Yeah,
feel
we were-
comfortable with what I see tonight, Brian.
I do too, and with Rebecca's statements.
Okay. All right. Hearing no others, Rebecca, if we were to condition this based on what we have received, are there any conditions that you see the RDA that we would need to add or would think to add?
I would say always restoring any disturbed area. So for instance, or you could limit stockpiling to the driveway regarding any material that needs to be stockpiled on site. And then I would explicitly state something like all work shall take place outside of 95 or 96 feet from the hydrologic connection on the property, or something to that effect to basically establish a limit of work.
Yep. Okay. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing for 189 Bear Hill Road. Do I hear a second for closing?
Second,
All right, all those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Lori,
aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well. I'd like to make a motion that we issue a -3 determination for 189 Bear Hill Road with the following conditions: that any of the stockpiling of materials for the build out be limited to the driveway as much as practicable, and that the construction will take place at minimum 95 feet from the hydrologic connection referenced and seen at this evening's plans. At this evening, referenced and seen in the plans presented at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye, sorry, I'm having a problem with my computer.
no problem. And I love the suspense. And Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Great, thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you, Rebecca, for your help.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
So once the document is signed by a quorum of the commission, I will notify you, and you can either pick it up by just hand pick up in the office, or I can mail it to you, but I'll confirm that once we receive the signatures. And after that period, it's a 10-day appeal period. The commission has 21 days to issue the permit, but typically it's whenever we received all the signatures, which typically is less than 21 days, just so you're aware.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
And I need to apologize, Rebecca. I know I'm remiss with the signature, I believe. I need to get to town hall still. Right. Next up on our agenda, I had our vote for Lot 5 Meadow Road. Last time, basically, we were just waiting so we could put in all of our additional conditions and construction schedule. And I believe all that is currently in the draft that we are now voting on. Do any members of the commission have questions or comments on Lot 5? And again, I think, Paul, you're exempt from this one because you weren't a member of the commission during the actual hearings, if that makes sense.
Yes, so Paul, you need to abstain during the vote for these two lots.
Okay, will do.
All right. Other commission members have any questions, comments? All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we issue the notice of intent for Lot 5 Meadow Road as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. All those in favor, please say, or yeah. Do I hear a second for approving
Second.
this notice of intent?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Paul,
I thought I was exempt from this one.
I was going to
just
say,
have
I'm
to
sorry,
say
I should have said,
abstain.
just have to say I abstained. My
I
bad.
abstain.
Lori
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an I as well. And along those, let's just do it again. Anybody have questions or comments regarding Lot 6 Meadow Road? All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we issue the notice of intent for Lot 6 Meadow Road as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for accepting these, for voting in favor of this notice of intent?
I second.
I am sorry. All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Paul,
I abstain.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an I as well.
Thank you.
If you are comfortable and ready, do you want to give us an update on John Powers Lane?
Sure. So we had, as you're aware, an enforcement order was issued for some activities that took place within jurisdictional areas of the Conservation Commission and further into town-owned open space as well, through, again, multiple resource areas under both the Wetland Protection Act and the local wetland bylaw. The residents have been made aware. They are working to come into compliance. They have contracted the wetland scientist who actually originally delineated the wetlands there. So he's very well informed as far as the extent of resource areas on site, and therefore will be reviewing the area. I forwarded that contract to you. The property owner has signed that document, and it lays out the information that, actually, I will share that if you're comfortable with it.
Please.
I apologize for the incestuous clicking there. So they have hired, again, Dave Burke, who is the wetlands resource specialist who originally delineated this site as part of the subdivision plan in the ANRAD that took place prior. He has been on site, as it notes, and he also notes and reiterates the various resource areas and associated violations under the Wetlands Protection Act and local bylaw, recognizing that these are also recognized by DEP. The tasks, he has also broken up the tasks, which was appreciated, into what can occur or what they would like to occur under the enforcement order, since actions can occur under the enforcement order, since it is in fact an order in and of itself. So here, what you have displayed, if you can see my screen, is the work that would take place under the enforcement order, so long as the commission is comfortable with that. For the most part, this is removing the fence, installing erosion controls, removing the material that was placed within jurisdictional areas, and then taking inventory of the vegetation that was there, which will dictate what needs to be replaced. And then, of course, the ground cover mixed in with that, they'll discover within the next couple of days, once that surface material is removed, whether that will naturalize itself or if there needs to be supplemental ground cover placed. As part of the enforcement order, as you are aware, it was required that the individual also file a notice of intent. The notice of intent would be for the restoration work that occurred under the enforcement order, and then the installation and relocation of the fence, which is necessary on the property due to the resident that lives there and some conditions that they need to live with. And the permanent location, they just note where that would need to go, any plantings, and just noting that it needs to be a wildlife friendly fence, noting some of the species that were observed out there, and the fact that there is a certified vernal pool directly adjacent to the property. And then it talks about their particular contracted parties' amount of hours on site, and of course the breakdown of what that will be. This individual also stated that they may need to rework this slightly for the final contract regarding what is actually carried out on site. And to clarify, so the condition that I'm talking about is safety for their child who has special needs. So that is why the fence needs to stay on the property, but certainly outside of the jurisdiction due to the fact that it's in violation currently. So that is the update I have on the property in this violation. It seems as though it is working to come into compliance. The one thing I did note is that so they were required to submit this by March 31st, which they did in fact meet that deadline. So I, at this time, would hope that the commission would not be considering any fines because this is the first step and they've met that requirement by March 31st. However, if there's a time period that the commission would like at least the work under the enforcement order to be completed, that is something that the commission may want to make a vote on this evening so that it is in the minutes. And I believe the representatives are present, including the contracted party. If the commission has questions about from that contracted party, what is reasonable for a time frame. We are in spring now, so it's a good time to plant. The ground is not frozen, so the fence can be removed. I'm unsure what the commission would like to do as far as the time frame, but certainly providing a deadline is helpful so that there is a set expectation in terms of what needs to occur by what date.
Thank you. I will ask if the contractor is here, what is a reasonable time frame relatively to be able to complete this?
Hi, I am Dave Burke. It's nice to see you all this evening. Rebecca, nice to see you. It's been a long time. A reasonable timeline, I would first back up a little bit and say that the first thing that we should do out there is probably install the erosion control, which was noted in your enforcement order. And that's just logical, makes sense. I think that was an oversight that wasn't mentioned. The second one is the need for an on-site survey to determine what was cut. And I think, the surveyor is going to be there anyway to do the fence. Is that correct, Tracy? It's my assumption and understanding that the survey crew will be there to realign the fence and get it where it belongs. Right now, it is in fact, as noted in your document, it's off-site to the east on town-owned land. A bit of it is, and certainly some is appears to be on the property of the neighbor to the north. So
The
fence,
land's already been surveyed.
okay, so you've got lines in the field? to
Yes,
the fence?
yes.
Okay, we had talked about this, Tracy. Survey runs into money, of course, but it's also the best way to document what type of woody vegetation, and I stated the size that I typically reference, somewhere around 4 and 6 inches, et cetera. What I like to do is take a careful walkthrough and grid the place off and determine what was cut and what species it was. And in that way, we could tell with pretty good degree of certainty whether or not it's going to re-sprout. Therefore, in most deciduous plants, as we know, do demonstrate coppice growth, which is a reaction to being cut, and they send up leaders. If you nurse that, the strongest leader, those plants will come back. I've done it any number of times on projects with good success, but there are some plants that don't come back as well, and those would be your conifers. They're not going to regenerate via coppice growth, but they are certainly going to seed themselves out rapidly. So with the survey is kind of, I would appreciate some input from the commission on it. It would appear that the fence is in order, the lines are in order at least, and you're ready to move on that, are you not, Tracy?
Ready to move on the fence?
Yeah.
Yes.
So how quickly, if with the consent of the commission, and we're operating under the premise of, everything we do now in jurisdiction is with the consent, without an order of condition. So how quickly could you have the fence straightened out in your mind?
I was planning on a meeting with a fence company tomorrow, so I could have that a better answer for that with their availability when I speak with them tomorrow. They're meeting me out at the house.
Okay, and that brings to mind what it's important to have, a wildlife friendly fence, and that's not difficult to achieve. We typically leave a gap in the bottom from 4 to 6 inches for small animals, and we talked about that on site. So, but for the purposes of the commission, they're going to want to know, as much detail as you can afford them. So if we're going to, if you're going to jump on the fence, that's great. Know what type it is and have the line staked in the field so there's no chance of some sort of error. And that we stay, on your property, obviously. So that takes care of the fence. Sounds like that could be done fairly quickly.
One point of clarification, Dave, before we move on, just for the clarification of the commission. So the fence needs to be moved outside of the jurisdiction of the commission. So the line or the survey that David's referencing is not where the fence has been, but where it's going to go, so that it's outside of the jurisdiction of the commission at this time and therefore brought into compliance. And that's one aspect of this enforcement order.
Excellent point, Rebecca. Thank you. That was discussed too, and I just overlooked that in my ramblings. But the fence, when it crosses the rear yard, technically, since it was put in without a permit, needs to we talked about installing a temporary structure of some sort that would function in order to keep Lewis or Lou, contained in a safe fashion. And then if you wanted to get into the 100-foot URA, it's also a certified vernal pool habitat. You wanted to get into that and make the fence include a little bit of the woods, which seem to be important to you, then that triggers notice. Well, that's not the only thing that triggers it, but that would be wrapped into a notice of intent filing. And you'd need obviously the consent of the commission to put the fence back into a jurisdictional zone. And I might add, if it helps anyone, I don't know who's been on the site, but the 100-foot line, a good reference is that I call it the jungle gym, or the play house or play structure, whatever you want to call it. It's right, there's a stone wall right behind that. And then right behind the stone wall is the 100-foot URA, which is coincident with the vernal pool habitat line. They're the same. So, you could imagine you could figure pretty easily if you walk on the site that the line runs behind the jungle gym, big wooden structure, and then it kind of swoops around the back of the grading of the septic system. It would make the most sense and be the least expensive to snap a line right across that somehow and get, if the fence is going to be temporary, and that's up to Tracy and Mitch, then install a temporary fence and then come back to the commission with that request to elaborate on that within notice of intent filing. That's a lot of words, but
Maybe, Mr. Chair, circling back to that timeline comment.
Yes.
In understanding, so it sounds like we have 2 steps that can either be taking place concurrently with the removal and moving the fence, or before, which is the placement of erosion controls and then the on-site survey. So, and then that seems to be under David's purview in understanding of a potential timeline. And then the second is obviously the fence contractor, who Tracy stated she'll be in contact with tomorrow. And she can certainly provide information from the fence contractor once that's been addressed. Due to the fact that contractors may be busy or not, I think the commission should also keep that in mind as they're establishing a timeline for that aspect of it. But the notice did go out in before March 31st. So the property owners have been working to come into compliance, but just to be cognizant of that as well.
All right. And I can ask the commission about this too, but would it even make sense if we set a timeline at perhaps our next meeting, just to give the parties more time to gather information?
Yes.
As far as this meeting goes, as far as any kind of fines go, everything seems to be moving in a positive direction towards compliance. So I would not be voting in favor of issuing any type of fine at this point. And it would seem like we could probably get a better idea of a timeline if we wait until our next meeting before setting one with this order. I will say the initial steps laid out as part of the response to the enforcement orders seemed fine to me, seemed very logical as to moving things in the right direction in an appropriate manner. And I didn't have a question or issue with those. Other members of the commission, do you have any questions, comments at this time? Does what I just said make any kind of sense, or how do you think best to proceed?
I agree with you. Waiting to see, you're waiting for landscapers or whatever to install stuff. So you have to go by their schedule. So it's hard to set a deadline when they're working around that. They obviously seem to be moving in the right direction, so I agree with you as far as no fines at this, as long as they keep moving.
I also agree, Brian. I think we have to wait to get schedules from contractors that they're working with.
Okay.
And then add a little buffer to that in case contractors get busy.
For the inevitable, right?
Mr. Chair, regarding
Go
the
ahead.
time frame, just so that we see continual progress and make sure that everyone is working together to come into compliance here on this item. Would it be helpful to just have the commission vote to require the party to be contracted for the fence, or at least provide some, again, same thing here, some written information from the contracted party by April 14th, which is the deadline for submitting new information for that April 19th meeting, and just to have it in the minutes, and then just to make sure that we all have the same expectation.
To the applicants, would that seem workable to you?
Well, that's 10 days away. If it's, and excuse me, that was directed to the applicants. If I may, or Tracy, Mitch, you can go first.
We can request that from the fence installers, and I can give you their names and information as well. And we'll be using Patriot Fence out of West Boylston, Mass, to do the work to move the fence. To take the fence down and then install a temporary fence. Did we freeze or are we good?
I think you're good.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. All right. So that said, Rebecca, if we were to take a vote, basically saying that we'd like to give the applicants until April 14th to provide us with proof of a contract for the fix of the fencing or a further update. I mean, if there's, go ahead.
I think that would be helpful. I think also it would be helpful if the commission's comfortable with the way the wetland resource specialist has submitted the process and the enforcement, the work that can occur under the enforcement order. Some of this work, like I said, can happen concurrently. So I think that may be helpful for the commission to just authorize this as well, to make sure that the property owner can start work and be working on that fence.
Okay.
And then David had another question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
David.
hey, Mr. Chairman, I think it'd be a good idea to get going on removal of the stone dust and stone chips that constitute the pathway, Rebecca. And I think that Tracy has the resources to do that, as far as a shovel and some help. When I was there, she and her brother were working hard to move the front fence, and I think there's not that much of that material, and it's important to mention, I don't know if I put it in writing, but the person that put that pathway down didn't excavate the organic layer. It looks like it was just laid down on top with a bobcat or a skid steer and then flattened. Therefore, if and when it comes up, you know, the plants should rebound in there. That's the hope. I don't like planting in a shaded area with store-bought material if, you know, we can see natural and native plants popping up. But the sooner we get the stone dust out of there, I think the sooner that we have a chance for success in that department.
Okay. All right. In that case, we can do a roll call vote of commission members. Then when it comes to the matter of the enforcement order for 3 John Powers Lane, that you agree to request from the applicant that proof of contract with a fencing company be provided to the commission by April 14th of this year. And that listed and presented at this evening's meeting, the tasks under the enforcement order, we allow the applicant to do work on those concurrently while we are waiting for this other information, or approve the tasks that are on the current enforcement order.
So we're going to approve the task. Are we voting next time for scheduling of those tasks?
That they
No.
can at least start on, and I know there's a question in there too. I was going to say, if the applicants want to ask a question before I take the vote, if that would be okay, Rebecca, if you could take them off mute.
I'm off.
Go ahead.
So I do plan on moving the gravel and stone dust myself. And I can start that probably after the rain, because I don't want to cause, any more disturbance. And the second question, and I know first of all, let me apologize that this happened. It was not our intent. We hired the landscaper of the builder, his son, who installed the fence and the path. We hired him in December and he didn't finish until after all the paperwork was signed off, which was in October. So we thought we were pretty, we didn't think that there was an issue. And again, this is done for our 11-year-old son who has autism and he's nonverbal. So keeping the fence up is very important for his safety. And also to protect our neighbors who are not tolerant of him wandering onto their property, which is reasonable. The police have been called on my 11-year-old for walking onto my neighbor's deck over the weekend. So not having a fence is not an option, which leads me to the next question. And as a parent, I think I have to ask as a parent, the sooner we can find out where we're able to install the new fence and get that up, the better Louis's life will be. He currently just wants to walk around on that path and look at nature. And taking that away from him, even for a limited period of time with a temporary fence, could potentially cause him to have self-injurious behavior, which he does have when he has denied access to things. So the sooner we can allow him to walk through the wooded area, the better his life will be. And so just asking for your support and help with trying to come into compliance, but also trying to meet the needs that he has, because he cannot access parks or the various hiking trails that we have around us as a person with the disability that he has. And we're just trying to give him the best life we can. We just moved to Bolton in August to give him that better life and to allow him to be a young boy in nature, which, he just loves walking that path and looking at the frogs and, being out there. So, I just don't know if it's possible to kind of work together to see if we can expedite this in a faster fashion so we can get him back to close to where he wants to be. I'm sorry if I was rambling.
You were fine.
Okay.
Thank you. No, we're happy to move this along as quickly as we can. So along those lines, the best for now would be to give, again, we're not planning to issue any fines. Everything seems to be moving in a positive direction. The faster you want to move it in that positive direction, I think is fine with any of us. So what we were looking to do tonight is basically say, look, until our next meeting, give you a chance to try to get a contractor lined up. So you'll have an idea how long it will take before they can replace that fence. And then we can talk to David again and see about how long he would take for the whole project to be completed. And then we can basically set a timeline and say, all right, you have X amount of time in order to complete this. But how fast you move through that timeline, it's up to you, really. I guess that said,
Sorry.
I would call for that roll call vote for members of the commission, that we vote when it comes to the enforcement order for 3 John Powers Lane, that we give the applicant until April 14th to submit proof of contractor of a fence contractor or a contract with the fencing company. And that the items listed under tasks to do under the enforcement order, that we allow the work on those tasks to begin. Rebecca, is there something I'm missing, or would that cover everything we had discussed?
I think that covers it, as long as you included that timeline of the fence contractor by April 14th. And yeah, so that
Okay.
covers everything, I think.
All right. So all commission members that are fine with those orders going forward for this enforcement order, please signal by saying aye. And we'll start with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing from you and sharing that information with the commission. Mr. Chair, if you would like, I can move on to the Century Mill Estates item.
Sure, that would be excellent.
Thank you for your time this evening.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you. So we have the ongoing enforcement order. Oh, Brian, there is someone with their hand raised. So the last item was not technically a public hearing item. It was an item during the public meeting, so it's at
Yeah,
your
we can,
discretion.
if the individual wants to comment on the last item, please, if you could unmute her.
I live here, so that's why I'm asking. I'm at John Powers Lane. I just have a very quick question as a very angry grandmother. I understand conservation, believe me, I do. But, you know, it's very difficult when you have a very mean and intolerant neighbor who will call the police on a 3-year-old. I mean, an 11-year-old twice. Where the builder built all these 4 houses on the street, is everybody else within conservation requirements, do you know?
I don't know offhand.
Can a request be made to see? Well, I mean, I know Tracy would have to do it. 'Cause that's my
Yeah,
daughter.
yep.
That's my daughter. So, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
so what you could do is send an email in writing. But typically it's at this point on that development, because everything's stabilized on site, you would want to request, typically the next step would be to request a certificate of compliance. So, and that would be from the developer.
okay.
So once that is done, the commission always conducts a site visit. So at
Okay.
that time, the site is reviewed
Okay.
for compliance.
Because this particular neighbor is the one that complained about the conservation and the fence and called the cops on Louis. So, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, so with Century Mill Road, the commission had issued an enforcement order for the expired order of conditions associated with one DEP file number 1120526. And the commission has mailed it certified and also mailed it certified and registered to ensure that the individual received the document. We have received a signature back. We have received no response back. So therefore, the project is still in a state of non-compliance. There are actions under that order of conditions that have not yet been completed, or work that had started and has not been completed on site. This is a large subdivision with multiple phases. The majority of the phases were cleared and only a portion of those phases have been completed. So therefore, again, it's in a state of non-compliance. So this evening, typically our next step in enforcement is to issue fines. So therefore, I would ask the commission if they want to consider that at this time.
Okay. And I'll pull the commission on that, but we didn't hear back at all from them? No, about nothing to that.
No, all we received was the return receipt with their signature.
And do we, and this may be immaterial, but do we know, has any of the other town departments heard back from them recently regarding construction plans or what?
I
they're
do not
planning?
believe so, unless it was within the past 24 hours. I do know other departments have reached out and have requested as-built and other information. The Conservation Commission has requested back in December and multiple times for a list of the work that has yet to be complete and the work that has yet to begun on site, along with what areas are complete, just so that the commission could consider that. But at this time, we have received nothing.
All right. I'll make a motion, but I'll probably call for a roll call vote to issue fines for the order, the expired order in a minute. But do any commission members have questions, comments, or thoughts ahead of time?
So Brian, what is the failure here? What were they supposed to do and what haven't they done?
I was going to say, Rebecca will have more specifics. This is that large housing development. Do you know where Century Mill Estates is?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So that was that entire housing development. Like she said, it was. I think it was a 4-phase project. I'll let Rebecca speak because I think there's many things that are incomplete.
So at least 2 phases have not been completed, but they were cleared or excavated or partially cleared. There is a crossing in one of those phases that should have been installed, has not been installed. Then there are other portions of the subdivision that, as far as the wetland crossings are concerned, might be in compliance, but they need to provide their wetland scientist review of those areas as we've requested. And basically walking through the order of conditions, the site ensuring that it's stable, and in terms of the areas that are cleared and open and aren't lawn now or haven't had any overseeding or stump grindings or anything like that, to ensure that it's stable. We also have some areas that were to be constructed as basins, but now they're almost forming a wetland function at this point. So that may cause difficulty down the line. And it's essentially that the project has yet to be completed. I can send you that order of conditions. I would be happy to walk through you with. I don't have it before me this evening, but so that you are completely aware. And that's actually a good idea to send it to you all to ensure that you're aware of exactly or reminded about this project and the extent of work that has yet to be done. But I will definitely send it to you.
And I was just saying, Paul, as a new member too, it's interesting to note too on something like this. Normally, when we issue an order of conditions, it's good for 3 years. This was issued at a time, there were lots of different things that happened where there were automatic extensions granted. I think after it was like 2008, 2009 housing crisis, there was 7-year blanket extensions put on. So I want to say, Rebecca, this has been 10 years, or I'm trying to think how long their current.
Close. pretty close, Brian, from the dated plans that I have in my office, so.
And what they were basically required, well, obviously they're supposed to be working through all those orders of condition, but barring that, they're supposed to at least ask for an extension. This order ran out. They've had 10 years to do it. And we basically had let them know, okay, are you planning to do this? And if you're not planning to do this, you need to request an extension. And that's what we haven't heard back on yet, if I'm correct, Rebecca.
So we're trying to make contact with the original builder, is that what it is? And they're just not communicating back with us?
The person who holds the order of
Correct.
conditions, yeah, the initial.
Um,
I guess was it
is that-
incorporated or an individual? I can't remember.
Is that person still in business though? Yes?
That is a good question, Bill. So what I have is that he is the person on record responsible for the permit, is the permitted applicant. If there's any sort of, it's baked right into the order. If there's any, and explicitly stated, if there's any transfer of ownership that explicitly needs to be submitted to the Conservation Commission with a deed, with an affidavit, and with a signed document stating that the new owner is clear and understands the order of conditions and needs to be in compliance with that order. And that's in every single order of conditions that the commission issues for circumstances that may either be a multi-person corporation, or maybe the development is sold or something to that nature, and it ensures that the commission still has the appropriate party to be held liable. And in this case, I have not been told otherwise, and it's still the original applicant it's still the applicant who was most recently involved with this permit and the last extension.
Does anybody know when the last construction happened out there?
I can look that up.
But there hasn't been any activity for a while. Is that the case?
That is a mixed question that I can also get you the answer to. So in subdivisions, at times work will be done on a house lot. And that, so for instance, they may build out one phase and then clear another, which is the case in this, or excavate another. So that other site's left open, but they may still be working on other sites, or they may hire other contractors to come in and do that work for them, as you're aware of.
I'm watching Fox run since I moved in here.
Yes.
That's kind of what's been happening over the years. Yeah.
Exactly. But I will send, that's a good point. The other thing, the commission does have the ability to table this until the next meeting, to give you an opportunity to review the order of conditions and sort of understand how you would want to calculate those fines. Because how the fines are calculated, it's $300 per day per violation. And I think that deserves some discussion as well, now that we're talking about this a little bit more, regarding how the commission wants to enforce that and issue those fines.
I think you bring up a good point where I think I'd be more comfortable actually reviewing it, because there is a lot in there.
Yeah,
And
it
again,
sounds like
Go ahead.
fines are in order. It's just question of how much and how you calculate it. I think it's my opinion anyway. Whatever.
In what do if we do issue fines, what is the outcome? What do they have to do to come in compliance?
They have to pay the fines, and they also, for this particular project, they just have to file a new notice of intent with all the work that hasn't been done yet. Because right now they're past the point of an extension request for an expired order. So at this time, they would have to review everything that they've done, get an as-built for work that's been completed, and then get a new notice of intent for work that is outstanding.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I'll put it out to commit to other commission members, but I'm fine with tabling it until our next meeting. Again, it gives them more than enough time to respond, and it gives us a chance to review and see what fines may be appropriate in this situation. Anybody have strong feelings differently?
Mr. Chair, not to interrupt, but would you like
Please.
me to send another notice to the applicant to just state that we've received no notice, the commission's going to be discussing further enforcement action, that sort of a notice, just that it gives them an opportunity between now and the next meeting to submit information, and just, again, a reminder to do that, to hopefully come into compliance.
I think that would be excellent if you could do that. Yep.
Yep.
Give them every opportunity.
They, they're notorious. I've been on this project since day one. I'm assuming it's the same individual that started the project. They're a developer. They know what to do. And it's not like the previous one that we just had, new house, people just bought the new house, didn't know anything. This guy knows what to do. He chooses not to. And so I don't give him much sympathy.
No.
We've been through a lot with him from day one. And he's destroyed Century Mill.
Yes. I think he was on the dock at my first Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
I know he was. I know he was.
Yeah. So just keep that in mind.
Yes. Okay. So that said, okay to table this vote until next meeting?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So tabled. Next up. I don't.
Do you want me to go through it?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you don't mind, Rebecca, I don't know if you want to hit, if we want to go through Bower Springs first, or if you want to go through some of the announcements first.
So Bowers is actually very short. I'm still waiting
Okay.
to hear back from a couple parties regarding the estimated cost. And then, so once I get that information, I will send it to you. I did just want to keep it for visibility on our agenda, because I know that is something people are going to be interested once that work starts, and the commission determines what exactly is to be done once we see the cost. And just going back to the last item, I will send out the order of conditions and the associated plans to you all, so that you have plenty of time to be reviewing that before the next meeting, because as Lori and Brian have hinted at, it's many years, but luckily it's only a couple documents that you have to look at. If you're interested in the full history of it, though, I do have a very large file in my office. I would be happy to go through with you. The Earth Day, so was that sufficient for Bowers, Brian? I know I sort of.
Yes. Yes. I basically waiting back to hear. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm hopeful that that will be by April 14th, so that that can be at the next meeting. Earth Day and Arbor Day events, as authorized at the last meeting. I have been working to schedule various events during the week leading up to Earth Day, which is April 22nd. We will be coordinating with Mary Boyd, leads a townwide cleanup and heads that effort through DPW. And I have reached out to DPW and her to just encourage that we also have individuals cognizant of that when they're entering our trails, clean up the trailheads. We're trying to do some invasive species cleanup as well, which will be helpful. But primarily it's the garbage and litter in the trail and then at the trail side, or trailhead, excuse me. On Friday, April 22nd at 1 p.m., I will be reading at the Bolton Public Library and doing a wildlife ID presentation and STEM activity with the children. All ages are welcome, but it is a partnership with the children's librarian Denise LaRoche. And on Thursday, I am hoping to schedule a trail work day over at Century Mill Estates, actually, through the easement. So we have the Town of Bolton Conservation Commission hold a conservation restriction, and that restriction includes an easement from Century Mill Road. And then it leads us into the 100 acres set aside for open space as part of that subdivision. And I have met with the Hudson Conservation Land Trust, if I'm remembering that correctly, and their conservation agent to discuss a potential trail connection to Danforth Falls in Hudson off of Route 85. That discussion went very well, so they may be participating in that work day also. And I encourage you all to participate. On Tuesday, April 19th, I will be doing a regularly scheduled guided trail walk starting at 12 p.m. We will be meeting behind Town Hall to hike the Powder House Conservation Area. So that's what I have thus far scheduled. There will be some other things sprinkled in there, but we're really hoping, or I'm really hoping to engage the public from varying ages on the days leading up to Earth Day and get people outdoors. That is my update for Earth Week. Any questions?
Nope.
No? Okay. Do you want me to continue?
Please.
Okay. So we already touched upon the minutes and the MVP program, again, the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. Our current program is the Nashua River Communities Resilient Lands Management Project. At our next meeting, some of our consultant team will be present to give you an update on where we are. They will also be doing so at the select board meeting to follow our CONCOM meeting, and just provide an update on where we are, provide an update to the community and what we're looking to do. It's a 2-year project again, as we remember. So we're finishing up FY21 and we'll be starting FY22. As part of that transition, we also need the commission's feedback on the bylaws and regulations matrix and information that we are looking at. Again, that's really looking to tie in climate resiliency practices into our current regs and bylaws. So the town planner will be involved as well, but we really wanted to just provide an update before the next year starts. And this is a good point as far as where we're requesting some more information and more engagement from the various community members to ensure that it's that you are all aware of it and you have a venue to ask questions versus just reaching out via email. And if you would like to be more involved in that project, we strongly encourage it, and our team would love to have you involved. We have core team, we have our forest task group, and then we will be having another task group entering into FY22. So there's plenty of opportunity. If you feel inclined, you can reach out to me and I can connect you with our consultant team. And then of course, our volunteer land steward position is still open. So if you have anyone who is interested in that, you can certainly contact me and I will share some information with them.
Excellent.
And that's all I had for today.
Thank you. Conservation Commission members, anybody have any new business or topic for discussion? Seeing none. Per our tradition, we will have our newest member, Paul Brandvold, close us out with the singing of the Bolton Town Anthem. Paul?
Oh, that was good.
No, it never gets old to me. That said, I'd like to make a motion that we officially hereby adjourn the April 5th, 2022 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I hear a second for adjourning?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Bill.
Aye.
Jillian.
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an I as well. Thank you all and
Wonderful.
have a lovely evening.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.